code 6, 105 North Avenue, 52.
Ready or not? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear those three words? For me, for the longest time, it was playing hide and seek with my friends when we were all little children. But now, those three words mean something different entirely. Pain. Hello everyone, and welcome to my unhinged attempt to grow my internet EP by approximately 0.01 of an inch, undertaking a challenge more ball-breaking than trying to 1v1 pre-patch General Radon at room level 1.
Oh god, I hate this deck. Oh, we got a stun. And that right there is how we take down Star Scourge Radon hitless at rune level 1.
Where the only things that you have to your name are a loincloth and a very average sized stick. This is Ready or Not, a tactical first person shooter / SWAT simulator made by the folks over at Void Interactive, first made available to the public on PC after a series of test builds in 2021. Ready or Not is viewed by a lot of the community as a spiritual successor to a series that spanned releases from 1995 through to 2005, simply titled SWAT. SWAT in of itself was the successful evolution of a larger series of games that were formerly known as Police Quest, before eventually adopting the moniker of SWAT, and from there on in, the franchise proceeded to just go by that name from SWAT 3 onwards. The brief tangential history lesson aside, what exactly are you all here for? I wish to documentize my attempt at earning the most prestigious item covetable in the game, known as the developer's Ruined Watch. In order to get this particular item, which admittedly is entirely cosmetic in nature and offers no tactical advantage whatsoever, you are required to complete an achievement called the Hermit. Now, as of recording and having checked Steam achievements, the overall percentage of the community who actually have this particular achievement is less than 1% of the entire player base. So needless to say, it's pretty fucking hard, right? For this documentizing of my attempt to acquire the developer's Ruined Watch, I will be doing so as required by the game by performing an Ironman mode run of the game. However, I will be attempting to make things even more difficult for myself beyond the aspect of already doing that on Ironman mode. Effectively, I intend to play the game through on its Ironman function whilst playing the game on hard mode, which I'm given to understand from the community. It's got a bit of a reputation for being John Wick simulator. For lack of another way to word it. Apparently, the AI can dome you from 3 rooms over through 2 walls with pinpoint accuracy, and that's just it, you're dead. So, to accommodate for that, I will in fact be attempting this run of the game's 18 vanilla missions, whilst using a reasonable quantity of mods to both enhance and alter the difficulty of the run by making it difficult without at the same time being virtually impossible, but difficult in a way that is ulterior from the vanilla hard mode experience. The intent of this is to document my attempt to acquire the developer's Ruined Watch, whilst also making it a bit more fun for myself and enjoyable for the audience. So, with that said, let me show you the loadout that I'll be using for the most part through this run. I will caveat that there might be some changes along the way, and I will be including a write-up of a breakdown of the most important mods that will be used. For anyone who is a part of the Ready or Not community, may well be aware of some or all of these mods. One that I'm sure most of you are already going to be aware of that I will be using, at least in part, is the Gunfighter gameplay overhaul. I've tested it somewhat extensively. I don't really notice a whole lot of differences between Gunfighter and vanilla. Outside of primarily that minor change that Gunfighter gives to your movement speed, and the animation changes in particular that pertain to sidearms, as it gives your sidearm some more centralized animations rather than being severely off kilter, which personally I would find quite helpful, since I am not somebody who uses canted sights much in the first place and don't have a lot of accuracy when it comes to using canted sights. So effectively, instead just using point shooting on a sidearm that has a laser sight fitted to it would be a lot more it'd be a lot more in line with how I would hip fire in this game. In addition to modding the overall gameplay experience, what you may notice from the footage is the visual clarity of the game itself. I am personally using a Reshade mod to enhance the visual quality of the game itself. I am using a modified version of a Reshade preset known as Real Response. I'll have a link somewhere in the description down below, but it's not that hard to find, and I would recommend it to anybody who likes using reshades to enhance the visual fidelity of their games. I feel that Ready or Not in particular is a game that benefits greatly from such mods. This one in particular, I'll have a little comparison up for you now. Vanilla footage on the left, Reshade footage on the right, and you can see just the differences in color tonality, visual clarity, and the general... I'm really not too sure how to describe it, but there's just a certain feeling that the Reshade preset gives that the vanilla presentation of the game doesn't quite seem to be able to capture, for me at least. One of the biggest things that I do like about the Real Response Reshade is the depth of field filter that it adds without also creating an oval fisheye effect. I know that there's a lot of Reshade mods that do that. I assume it's because they're all emulating the idea of you're playing the entire game through a body cam. But I prefer Real Response, since it would be closer to simulating what it would actually be like if you were in that position and you are actively visualizing the scene that is playing out in front of you. It also affects the way light behaves, so light shafts and light bleeding in from a dark environment, or inverse, coming from a dark environment into an area that is bleeding with light. Again, you can see that in the comparison here of just how much it affects the ability to see from one environment into another as you transition through thresholds and similar environments where there's a dramatic shift in the lighting of the environment and geometry around you. Now, I'm not going to bore everybody to death with the entirety of my mod load order, but the ones that I would like to bring note to specifically are the Gunfighter gameplay overhaul, the realistic AI mod pack, from which we will be using the tactical high game mode, and also Boom's Bloody Ballistics. This is all mentioned in my breakdown of the mods, or at least the mods being used that have a greater effect on gameplay. I came to this conclusion after notarizing the differences between a few different mods in each category, and this was the conclusion that I came to in order to have the best combination of mods that improve upon the general AI behavior within the game itself, to modify the game's gunplay, and also to alter and make more believable the game's ballistic system and make it, for lack of a better word, more realistic. Now, I'm not expecting to S-rank every mission. I mean, I'm probably not going to be doing anything or any of these missions less than lethal anyway. This is purely going to be, can I survive 18 stages of absolute hell and earn the reward that lies at the other end? Because there are a few other ways that you can get the watch, admittedly none of them legitimate. The ones that I'm aware of would be to use a cosmetic unlocker, or get carried through the entire game, or download a modified save file or something like that. But I want to actually earn my developer's ruined watch. So this little project of mine will serve as evidence and documentation of me being able to prove to myself, if nothing else, that this is a challenge that I can set for myself and then subsequently overcome. And as you'll be able to see from the feed that I'll put on screen real quick, I have completed the entire game on standard difficulty already and got the S ranks from that. So the developer's ruined watch is the only cosmetic that I do not currently possess. And so in that I see it as a kind of ultimate challenge, big gamer, you know. We gamers like to brag about being really good at, you know. Because I'm not intending to get an S rank on every mission in the game, we might end up having a few situations that look a little bit like this.
Alright boys, let's go in. LAPD time. That man is Big Dad. Hands up! Oh, he put his hands up! He put his hands up at the last second! You bitch! That wasn't my fault. No, that's not! Fuck you, that wasn't police brutality!
But alas, you know, these things happen sometimes. But the goal really is just to, can we survive 18 levels of hell, and doing so on a playthrough that has the core game mechanics modified to make them, generally speaking, more difficult than they already are. And as if that wasn't challenging enough, I've also decided to throw an additional spanner in the works for myself of trying to use a different themed loadout, both for myself and for the AI squad members, on each mission, if I can think of a design that is on theme and fitting for that stage. So for the player character alone, AI squad members aside, I'm looking at potentially having to design 18 different loadouts, one per level. So that's going to be interesting. Of course, because this is an Ironman mode run, it does mean that a single death on my part, or death or departure of a squad member, would cause the entire run to fail. So in that regard, I will take a few small precautions against this, both to save myself time and to not bore all of you by effectively recycling gameplay footage of the same 18 levels of the game over and over and over again. So I will only present the successful run of each stage as we proceed through them. I will keep a backup of my save off the Steam cloud in order to make progressing through this task a little bit easier, else otherwise I would be, for every time that I die or an officer in my company dies, it does mean having to go all the way back to mission 1 of the series. And for as much as I enjoy playing this game, I don't feel that that would be a very effective use of my time if I end up stuck on, let's say, greased palms for half a month, because I have to keep getting back to that stage, catch one rogue bullet, die, and then have to go back and do it all again. That seems like it'd be a bit of a waste of both my time and yours. So I will be keeping a off-site backup save in order to maintain the progress. And in addition to that, in order to tackle squad stress levels, I have afforded myself a singular caveat in that I will be using the vanilla version of the no SWAT stress mod, primarily, if for nothing else, then because in the vanilla game you are only able to send 3 of your squad members into therapy at any one time. And during the earlier stages of the game, this becomes very difficult to manage because you will likely always have more officers in a state of high stress compared to the amount of therapy slots available. And so it creates a bit of a feedback loop of how do you ever maintain all of your officers to a degree where you're not constantly worried about one of them resigning, which is something else that can cause the run to fail. So I have that one mod there to make officer stress management easier, so that it's one less thing that I have to go and reacquire the backup save for the run from, so that realistically we're only worried about dying during the run, and managing officer stress is still going to be a factor, but less of a challenge in of itself, if that makes sense. It's a little bit difficult for me to word my thought process around this, because that almost makes it sound like I'm making the game easier, but for the fact that combat in of itself will be so difficult and so punishing that having to juggle the stress factor on top of that means, in my view, I'd be more likely to have officers die anyway. So you kind of reach a point of, I don't think there's a word to describe it as such, but it would be the gameplay difficulty equivalent of reaching terminal velocity. You eventually just reach a point where it doesn't matter how hard the game is anymore, because it's just reached a level of difficult that anything beyond that kind of doesn't matter because it's already too difficult. So I wanted to make this difficult, I wanted to make this challenging, I wanted to make this interesting, but I didn't want to make it physically impossible to succeed at, if that makes sense.